ever lost your temper at yourself, blamed, and then beat yourself up for doing something you regret? Maybe you've been harsh with someone, only to be much harsher with yourself later. It's easy to be tough on yourself. We tend to do it much more than we realize. But what if there was a better way? When we forgive ourselves, accept our perceived flaws, and show ourselves kindness, we practice self-compassion. It's often a lot harder than it sounds, but with the right techniques, we can learn to make it a habit that sticks. While some people come by self-compassion naturally, others have to learn it. Luckily, it is a learnable skill. Having self-compassion means being able to relate to yourself in a way that is forgiving, accepting, and loving, while situation might be less than optimal. We know that it's similar to yet less permanent than self-love, and that it's distinct from self-esteem. But how do we show self-compassion? Dr. Christine F. PhD said that self-compassion is a practice of goodwill, not good feelings. With self-compassion, we mindfully accept that the moment is painful and embrace ourselves with kindness and care in response, remembering that imperfection is part of the shared human experience. With self-compassion, we give ourselves the same kindness and care we'd give to a good friend. Having compassion for oneself is really no different than having compassion for others. Think about what the experience of compassion feels like. First, to have compassion for others, you must notice that they are suffering. If we ignore that homeless person on the street, you can't feel compassion for how difficult his or her experience is. Second, compassion involves feeling moved by others' suffering, so that your heart responds to their pain, because the word compassion is literally means to suffer with. When this occurs, you feel warmth, caring, and the desire to help others in some way. Having compassion also means that you offer understanding and kindness for others when they fail or make mistakes rather than judging them harshly. Finally, when you feel compassion for another rather than mere pity, it means that you realize that suffering, failure, and imperfection is part of the shared human experience. Having self-compassion involves acting the same way toward yourself when you are having a difficult time, fail, or notice something you don't like about yourself. Instead of just ignoring your pain with stiff upper lip mentality, you have to stop and tell yourself that this is really difficult right now. How can I comfort and care for myself in this moment? Instead of just mercilessly judging and criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings, self-compassion means you are kind and understanding when confronted with your personal failings. After all, whoever said you were supposed to be perfect? So, what is the difference between self-compassion and self-love? Self-compassion and self-love are two related but distinct concepts. Self-compassion can be defined as being kind and understanding when confronted with personal failings. It means that you act the same way toward yourself when you are having a tough time, the same way that you will act toward a dear friend. For example, is noticing the suffering, empathizing or suffering with yourself, and offering kindness and understanding. On the other hand, self-love is about valuing yourself as a human being who is worthy of love and respect. Self-love is a more stable construct than self-compassion. While you can be compassionate toward yourself in any moment, self-love is probably something that you need to build up. Why is self-compassion so important for well-being? Self-compassion is a vital component of the factor that protects us against depression and the negative outcomes it brings with it. Research has shown that those with low self-compassion are at risk for greater avoidance of their problems, more rumination over their thoughts and feelings, and worse functioning. Forgiving and nurturing yourself can set the stage for better health, relationships, and general well-being. Self-compassion yields a number of benefits, including lower levels of anxiety and depression. Self-compassionate people recognize when they are suffering and are kind to themselves at these times will reduce their anxiety and depression. In addition, self-compassion can act as a buffer between us and self-judgment, isolation, and over-identification, common issues in depression. Those with higher self-compassion are not only generally less troubled with these symptoms, but they are also better able to cope with them than those who do not show themselves as much compassion. With that in mind, we'll cover techniques called self-compassion mantra for practicing this goodwill and to help you along the way. Mantras are phrases or sentences that you can repeat to yourself throughout the days as needed to keep you focused on your goals, mindful of what is happening inside your head, and feeling calm and balanced. For example, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself. Repeating a compassionate mantra to yourself will help you learn to treat yourself like you would treat a beloved family member or friend and encourage the development of a healthy sense of self-compassion. However, there is no reason why you must stick to this mantra. You can create one that works better for you. Follow this step to create a good personalized mantra for you. Make sure the first phrase brings mindfulness to the fact that you are in pain. Use the second phrase to remind yourself that this is natural and an inescapable part of being human. In the third phrase, make sure you bring a sense of care and concern to your present experience. Show yourself some love. Finally, ensure that your final phrase sets an intention to be compassionate toward yourself. I hope you found this helpful and learned at least a few new things. If you didn't, I'd love to hear about that too. Leave us a comment about your experience practicing self-love and boosting your self-compassion. I'm Indhana Alfania and see you!